So we're at a point now where we have the enemies moving around the screen, the player moving, and a variety of other things. And now what we want to do is actually spawn the enemies in the level. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our level, and we're going to go to events, and we're going to make it so every 1 second we're going to create an enemy. And we're going to make sure that's initiated at the start of the level. So we're going to create a when created event. And then we're going to go to flow. And under time. Now we've looked at a delay and after a certain amount of time based event, but we're going to use an every event. So every 1 second we're going to make something happen. And that thing is we're going to create, like we did with our bullet and particle, we're going to create an actor, and that actor is going to be the enemy. Now the place we want to create this, we could create specific places in the map to do this from, but we're in this case going to randomly place them in the middle of the map, or wherever in the map. So for that, we're going to use a random number between 0 and, where is it? Under here, there should be the option of scene or screen width. Since they're both basically the same size at this point, it doesn't matter. I usually will use screen in these situations. You might actually want to be a little bit less, because if you spawn an enemy off the screen, they're not going to show up. But there may be a little bit of piece of code we can use later which could fix that problem. So making sure that's set to height instead. So that should now spawn enemies on the screen. So then after that, there's just a couple more things that we need to do. But for now, what should happen is the enemy should kind of pop up out of thin air, and as they did before, pursue you in the map and try and push you off the level. Let's give it a moment to load. There you go. Sure enough, you get killed when you go off the screen. Whoa. There we are. Okay. So you're probably seeing that a lot of the enemies are they go off the screen and they don't come back. So we're going to fix that problem, and then we're going to implement a timer. So if we go into our enemy, there's one little piece of code that's missing. Now, if you might remember from me saying earlier, if an enemy goes off the screen or an object goes off the screen, unless it's specified, that object will no longer exist. It'll be inactive. So you need to add this piece of code here, which is on the properties, and it's the make self always active piece of code. And that should now make it that no matter where your enemy ends up on the screen or off screen, it'll continue to exist until stated otherwise. For example, you get shot or destroyed. So now at this point, we're going to get a basic timer score working. So for that, I'm going to create myself a new game attribute, and that is going to be timer. So for that, every 1 second we're going to add 1 to the timer. The problem is though, if we just add 1, all that's going to do is it's just going to equal 1. What we want to do is find the current value of what 1 is and add 1 to it. So, for example, if timer was 0 and you added 1 to it, that would be 1. And then a second later, once it had done the update again, it would find out that the timer currently was at 1 again. So then it would add 1 to that, which would give you 2, and so on and so forth. So what we can do at this point is we can actually display this on the screen. So for that, we're going to go add event and then do a when drawing event, which you can see here. And you should see like a little tab pop up here, which is for specifically for you drawing based stuff. So I'm going to draw some text to the screen, which should be in the basics section. But first, I need to add my font, and the font that you want it to use should always go before the writing that you want it to put in. So just for now, I'm going to just display the timer on its own, and I'll probably put it in. I'm going to put it in the top corner. So 2020. I'll just give that a quick test. You should see a number that continues to count up. Now with that, there's a couple of things that need to be addressed. The first one is when you die, we haven't specified anywhere that that timer needs to reset. And then also, from a user perspective, the player doesn't know what that number means. I mean, it might, you know, obviously most people will see a timer going up and assume that that's a timer. But having some kind of visual representation of what it means is always good. Yeah, so can you see that even though I've died twice, it's still counting the timer at quite a high amount. So we need to fix those two things. So the first one we can fix by going to when created, and just before we start doing the loop, we can set the timer when the level is created to 0. And then inside of here, what we want to do is we want to add a piece of writing to the front. But the problem is we can't put, you know, timer in and then also fit this in because it's only one block of code that can fit in. So if we go over to numbers and text and into text specifically, there's this little piece of code here which is text and text. So it's like two chunks of text can be combined. So for example, the timer and the word timer next to it, or I'll do time because it sounds better. And now it should display the current time with like actually displaying the word time with it. Whilst we're here, we might as well add the best time that you can get. Okay. So once again, it's going to be a number-based attribute. And if we go to here, we don't need to set the best, what the current best time is at the beginning, because that's going to be set by whatever the best score is. So if we go to act created, what we can do is if the spaceship is killed, we can say, we can ask create an if function which asks a question, and that question is going to be if the current score or current time is greater than the best time, set the best time to the current time, or the timer. And then after that's been set, we'll obviously, when the level begins again, timer will be set to 0 and the best time will be preserved. So all we need to do now is display that. So we're in the same structure as before. Now, one thing that happens from time to time, and in particular I don't like, is that sometimes the code will kind of look like there's bits missing from the edges of it. To avoid any complications, always try to get a new piece of code to replace any bits that look like they're kind of falling to pieces, just in case there's something that causes something to go wrong. Just happens from time to time. So we want to set the Y to 20, and we can set the X to, the width is about 240, so let's set it to 200. That might not be right, but we can always tweak it and refine it afterwards. Okay, so that's all set up now. So let me just give it a quick test and see if that's going to work. And then other than that, we're just about there with the game. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what else we didn't need to add in. So that was definitely off with the alignment. So let's just quickly tweak that. You could even have some kind of text or code displayed over the character if you were wanting. But other than this, the game's pretty much there. So what I'm going to do is, once this is loaded and I've given it a couple of tests just to see whether it's going to work, I'm going to take a look at the template game that I built previously, make sure I've ticked all the boxes and, identified everything that we've needed to cover in this. And then I'll do one more video that basically covers anything that I've missed, and then talk about the export process. This is me doing terribly at this. Oh dear. I think I might boost that speed a little bit. Can you see that the best time is being updated and changed based on how well I do? There's some very nice particle explosions. Yeah, I think that the movement of the ship could probably do with a little bit of tweaking and refining, but other than that, I'm pretty happy with this. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll wrap up this video here, and I'll come back to it in a little bit and figure out if there's anything else that I'm wanting to cover in these. Okay?